For those of you that have been following my videos for a while, you've heard me sing the praises of Ashenominee, or more commonly known as joint vetch or deer vetch. I've also talked about another plant called alyce clover. I want to show you why I think so highly of this combination. I'm in a field here that I planted this past May, May and the spring of this year. And as you can see, it's doing extremely well. It's, 6 feet tall. I planted about 10 pounds of vetch and 10 pounds of alyce clover together per acre in this 3 or 4 acre field. And here it is, as you can see. Now, right around the corner, less than 100 yards from here, I have a field in red clover. I planted it this fall in red clover and wheat. I've kept it in the red clover field for several years, so the red clover does extremely well in the spring and into the summer, but then as it starts to peter out, you can see that the vetch is really coming on strong. It's October the 7th right now, and in Louisiana, everything's pretty well parched up and dry. I've terminated the summer food plots of soybeans and cowpeas. The wheat that I planted here in the fall hadn't really started coming up yet. So here you have the vetch and the alyce that's green and lush. And I can tell you, there's hardly a tip anywhere on any of these plants in this entire field that hadn't been eaten. It's amazing. Same with the alyce clover. Deer absolutely love vetch. They absolutely love the alyce clover. It's high in protein, it's highly digestible, and extraordinary crop. Now here's the other benefit of it in the deep south. It becomes a reseeding annual. The only thing I will do to this field, when frost comes, it'll kill it. But I won't do anything until next spring, when I'll come in and I'll mow it, and if conditions are right, I'll lightly disc it. But I will tell you, in another field that we're going to go look at in a minute, it's a field I planted 5-6 years ago in vetch, and because of a wet spring this year, the only thing I had the opportunity to do was go in and mow it. It was too wet to disc, so I didn't take the chance. And I think you'll see it's doing extremely well. Now, one other observation about this field as I'm standing here, it's absolutely alive with bees. There's a roar or a hum of all the bees that are in it. The vetch is starting to create some little flowers that the bees love. The alyce clover's going to flower. And even though it's flowering and seeding now, the deer still love it. The bees still love it. It grows big bucks. What's not to like about all of that? Now let's go take a look at the field that I established 5 years ago. And I think you're going to want to include vetch in your summer food plot as well. Let's go take a look. Here I am in the vetch field that I planted 5 years ago. I planted it with the same proportions that I was talking about earlier, 50% vetch, 50% alyce clover, but I think over time the vetch is a little more vigorous and it starts to take over, which is fine with me. The truth of the matter is that the deer like vetch better than they like the alyce clover, although both of them are very valuable. Now, as you can see in this field, it's done extremely well. I mentioned earlier, the only thing I did in this field in this spring was get in here and mow it one time. And certainly there's some weeds in here. You can see some weeds out through there, and there's a few more down there in a wetter spot. But vetch is very aggressive. It's very competitive with other weeds and so forth. And because it gets tall, it tends to outcompete most weeds. I just found this too. Here's a spider making a little nest. All kinds of things flourish up in here. Now, also, same thing. Every tip of every vetch plant in here has been nipped, heavily grazed. Ashenominee or joint vetch is fairly expensive. I think it's about $250, $300 for a 50-pound bag. And like I said, you're only planting 10 to 20 pounds to the acre, so it's fairly expensive. But when you amortize that over, well, in the case of this field right here, 5 or 6 years, the cost isn't so bad. And I can't say enough good about it. I'll try not to be too repetitive, but it's a fabulous crop and does fabulous things for the deer. Right now, with it dry like it is, the deer are still piling in here. There's a butterfly over there. Joint vetch, good stuff. Can't say enough about it. I suggest you plant some.